ask that if you have one of these, you might like to put it to silent, so that there's no interruptions during the service. Appreciate that, thank you.
that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Ooh, someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dare to, oh why can't I? Oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dare to, why can't I?
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Today we gather to remember the life of John Gunn Scott, or Jock as he was known to many. A husband, a father, a grandfather, a brother, an uncle, and a great friend to those who knew him. I'll start by thanking you for being here today as we gather to remember his life, to reminisce, to share a laugh, to share a tear. So I want to thank you for your expressions of love and condolences. I know that your presence here means a lot to Jock's wife Jenny, to his family, Andrew and Jim and the grandchildren. And on their behalf, I'd like to thank you for coming along this afternoon as we gather to remember his life. While your presence here today is an encouragement, it's also a source of comfort to them. We gain some comfort today and over the coming days and weeks from those that have been in this situation before, from people who have suffered loss before, who have experienced the pain of losing a loved one. We draw alongside Jenny and the family, and we comfort as we've been comforted. If you've lost a loved one, you may have some idea of what they're going through today. And because of that, you can provide that comfort through a hug, a kind word, or even just being near. And so being here today is very much a source of comfort to the family, so thank you. Jock's passing has left a void that will not be easily filled. So again, thank you for being here and for loving on the family today. Jock was one of 3 children, born to Alex and Grace Scott in Dunbarton, Scotland, on the 31st of May 1939. You could say he was a bright lad, one who knew his own mind. He could have done well at school, I heard, but he worked out that if he didn't do so well, he wouldn't have to follow the family into a career in banking. So he didn't do well. because he couldn't stand the thought of working at the bank. All he ever wanted to do was to be a mechanic, and he was determined to become one. While he might have failed exams at school, he topped the class in his mechanical training. You might say, Jock knew what he wanted. Same could be said of the morning he walked into Charlie's Caff next to the bus station in Inverness. Saw young Jenny sitting there. He knew what he wanted. That was the beginning of a love story that would last 62 years. Before they were married, Jock and Jenny knew they wanted to emigrate to Australia, and they put those plans in motion. They married in November 63, and when the approvals came through, they left Scotland in February the following year. They eventually settled in Rouse Hill, where they lived up until about 18 months ago, when they moved to the coast. Jock worked as a mechanic before establishing his business, Skid Steer. They were happy here, a long way from the winters of Scotland, and started their family. Andrew coming along in 76, and James, or Jimmy, because none of you'd know him as James. Jimmy came along in 1981. And both boys worked with their dad at Skid Steer. And Andrew runs the business today. Jock was a keen motorbike racer. He raced and maintained classic historical motorbikes. But Max is going to tell us a little bit more about that shortly. Jock enjoyed reasonable health until recently and passed quietly at home on Anzac Day. I'm going to ask Max if he'd share a few things about Jock with us now. Yep. If we can get him out.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Max Howell, great motor jocks from motorcycle racing days. And I had the pleasure of meeting Jock 40 years ago. For me to say a few words about Jock is he was a dear friend, a keen motorbike racer, beat me more times than I beat him, but I always forgave him. I've known Jock for 40 years. We met at the HRR, the Historic Racing Register. We rode lots of our meetings at Amaroo Park. There were lots of riders and visitors. Jock and a few others and I always pitted together, and the mateship was always close. But when we were on the track, we grew horns. Such was racing, but off the track, we were the best of pals. Jock was a canny Scotsman, but on the racetrack, he always gave his best. There were others who used to drag the chain, waiting for handicap events. Later, waiting for handicap events. Later in the day, but there were eventually caught out and copped a ribbing, usually from Jock and myself. But it all added to the fun. At the end of the day, with a beer in one hand and a trophy in the other. As time went by, Jock and myself and others joined other clubs, the MCRC, the Motorcycle Racing Club of New South Wales, and it was totally a different and new atmosphere. A really friendly group that loved racing, no holes barred on track, but great mates off. On race days, we would gather at Oran Park, a track that was liked by all and a very competitive. It was longer and faster than Amaroo, so more speed was achieved. It was a common occurrence if our bikes were not ready on the day, we would go and volunteer to help officiate. Jock would always offer his truck and trailer as a recovery vehicle. In later years, Jock was awarded lifetime membership to the club, which he cherished very much for a job well done. Jock would love to travel. He'd go to Phillip Island, Broadford, Winton, Wakefield, even New Zealand, as a participator or a visitor, and enjoyed it immensely. Jock had one bad habit though. There were usually a few of us that shared a cabin or a caravan, and first thing in the morning, Jock would light up a cigar. He loved his miniature cigars, but the smell and the effects of the night before didn't enhance his popularity. I can't say here where he was told to go. On his last trip to Broadford, Jock had to drive John Emery home. John's with us today. John Emery home, who had a stroke, so Jock drove the recovery vehicle once more. Jock loved racing his Honda, but years later he bought a replica Manx Norton, and I think time and age caught up, and he didn't get the thrill to ride that bike to his or its full potential. Jock and Jenny built a great business that started in the backyard, and today skid steer has a reputation second to none in their field. Jock, I hope you enjoyed your last race. You got the checkered flag. Jock, from your loved ones and mates, all the best. Farewell to Jock. Farewell, mate. Thank you.
Now, Ian Robertson is going to say a few words. Thanks, Ian.
Afternoon. My name is Ian Robertson, as I just said. I've been a friend of the Scott family for close on 50 years. We first met in 1976 when my then wife and I, we bought a property just up the road from Jack and Jenny. Well, I always called him Jack. Never ever knew him as Jock, always knew him as Jack, or Gelignite. And I'll talk about the Gelignite later. And Jenny at the time was pregnant with Andrew, as it turned out, and she was pretty much bedridden. So one of the other neighbours took my wife down, introduced her because she thought Jenny might like a bit of company. And then from that, the four of us just developed a very, very close and long-lasting friendship. And back in those days, Jack being the quiet fella that you all know he was, he introduced me to Scotch, and I'd go down, and all night he'd keep offering me drinks, being a good host. Me, not wanting to offend this new neighbour I'd not long known, I kept taking them. So by the end of the night, we'd both have the old wobbly boots on, and I'd stagger off back up the street home. And I used to winch to my wife and say, "Geez, that bloke can drink." But what I didn't know was he'd be saying to Jenny, "That bastard can drink, you know." So, but needless to say, we had a lot of good nights together. We had a lot of years together. I didn't have any connection to Jack with his racing, but I know I was there and probably a little bit instrumental in when he started the business at home, when he left Clark Equipment in, I think it was 1994, I think. Anyway, then some years later they bought a block of land out at Mulgrave. Him and Jenny, they had the factory built out there, moved the business to there, and then I know Jack was very, very proud of the fact that over the years when Andrew got older, then, well, I call him James, Jimmy, they both did their apprenticeship with him. He was very, very proud of the fact that they worked out there alongside him and Jenny, and a very close-knit family, as you all know. And yeah, I've got nothing but love and respect for them. And with the Gelignite bit, what happened there was at Grouse Hill, there was one of the droughts, Jack's dam had dried up and silted up. So he had this idea, he thought he'd buy all this Gelignite and he'd blast it, clean it out. So that's what he did. So one morning he's on with the gum boots, grabbed the Gelignite, down he goes, sets it all up in the dam, and then once he's ignited it, he's ready to take off, but the gumboots were stuck in the mud. So he's there, the wick's on, so eventually he's just dived out of the gumboots, left them behind, raced for his life in his socks, and ever since then we called him Gelignite. But over the years there's been a lot of good times over and over, and as I say, really there's not a great deal more than that I can say. You've heard the other history of Jack, but he's been a good mate, and I'm very, very proud to consider him a mate. And to Jenny and the boys, yeah, our thoughts are with you. And I think everybody here today, I'm sure from what I knew of Jack, you would all have some special moment that you can remember with him. And I think we've just got to hang on to those things and take them forward with us when we do remember. And Jack, Gelignite, all the best. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I'm going to take a moment now to pause and reflect on some of the stories we've just heard, the stories that draw pictures in our minds of the man who had such an impact on so many. So we're going to look at some pictures on the slideshow. Thank you, Matt. Abraham Lincoln said, in the end, it's not the years in a life, it's the life in the years. And from what's been shared today, we know that Jock had a lot of life in his years, and it made quite an impact. No one can live for 84 years almost and not have some impact on those around them. And we've been fortunate to hear some of those things today, and we see the legacy in his family, and we're grateful for the life that he had. And we can't think of Jock's death without thinking about our own mortality, maybe even resolving to live a fuller or more meaningful life of our own. His passing reminds us that we don't live forever and causes us to reflect a little. But one of the things that we can learn from Jock is that relationships with family and friends are the most important things in life. And you can see today that Jock valued his family so very much, and he valued his friends. I think that's testament to Jock's life that there's so many people here today to remember him and to be a comfort to Jenny, Andrew, Jim and their families. And so again, I'd like to thank you for your presence here today, and I hope that our time together brings us a little closer to each other and brings each one of us a degree of comfort as we pay tribute to and remember Jock's life. The family would like to extend an invitation to refreshments and some reminiscing at the Rimba RSL Club on the Pacific Highway to Rimba. The RSL car park, if you're visiting and not familiar with the area, the RSL car park's on the right hand side of the highway, but the RSL Club's on the left hand side. So if you turn right at the traffic lights at Dog Trap Road, I think it's the second set of lights from the roundabout down here, and then right off the first roundabout once you get around the corner into that big car park. Jack's request.